Hi, everybody. Mike here. We're going to start a new thing. We are going to start interviewing creators. So people who write PDFs or books or software, things that help us play the game. Today, I am joined by actually a really good friend of mine who's nice enough to be the experiment with this, Matthew J Hanson, who owns Sneak Attack Press. So Matthew, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us, when you started playing D&D, how did you even start publishing? How long have you been doing this?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me. I started playing D&D back in the Red Box days. I forget how old exactly I was, but that was probably 8 or 9.
You're not that old.
Oh my gosh. I'm almost 40, which I know you're older than almost 40, but it's a milestone. Back in the day, Red Box, my brother got it. We played together. He was Dungeon Master. I was the first player, and then got into some other games. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles got me into Palladium, and then a bunch of other stuff followed from that. So, like a lot of diversity in my gaming. And then I started freelancing around the college years. Did a lot of little things here and there. Did a couple articles for Dragon Magazine back when it was actually in print. Worked with a bunch of third-party publishers, and then I'd been thinking about starting my own company for a little bit. This was when like PDFs were starting to be a thing, and Monty Cook did a big PDF experiment, and then RPG Now came about before DriveThruRPG, which is where I mostly sell now. And yeah, I'd been thinking about doing some publishing, and I had a adventure that I'd written that I submitted to a publisher. They said they were going to publish it. They canceled. I submitted it to another publisher, said they would publish it, and then they canceled. And I finally said, you know what, I'm going to just publish it myself. And then I did.
Is that adventure still for sale on DriveThru?
It is still for sale, yeah. So that's called Blessed by Poison. Looks like Blessed by Poison. I like to say it Blessed by Poison, though, because I feel like it's kind of Shakespearean or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah, and that is still up there. It's 4th edition and Pathfinder 1st edition. And it's like, I don't take anything down, but the production quality is definitely not what our current ones are. So if you want to take a look at it, take it with a grain of salt. It was my first thing.
I thought I only had one hard copy of your products, but I have 2. Let me reach back on this shelf right here. Hold on.
Yeah.
This, speaking of great quality and the work that you do now, I mean, this thing is amazing. I don't even know how long it is. It's over 340 pages in my hard copy right there. And I know you worked with another person on that. Do you work with other people very often? How did you start working with other people?
First of all, like artists, I've always worked, well, actually, first books I did actually used public domain art to get it on the cheap. My goal in all of this is to not lose any money. So started actually using public domain art, and then I got a little bit of money from that I started hiring artists.
Before you go on, how do you find the artists?
That's a good question. The online, the main forum that I have used is RPG.net. They have a sub-forum for like looking to hire artists. There's other places out there for sure. I know DeviantArt is a place that people have found artists. Sure. I'm sure that there's many more. Yeah, I've been lucky enough that I've found some good artists, and I've got like a few favorites that I've been using pretty frequently. And I put out not a ton of books, so it's not like I need a huge stable. I found my main editor through RPG.net, and I've been using the same guy for most of my books. This book, Runewild, Bill Fisher, William Fisher, I actually play D&D with, and he was running this game, the Rune Wild. I'm like, man, this is a lot of fun. And like, he and I think, share a lot in terms of what we like about D&D. Like, we both love random tables, cannot get enough of them. And we both have been playing for a while. So like, you know, getting into the history, some of the history stuff is a good time. So yeah, so I like this a lot. And I said, hey, I've got this publishing company. Would you be interested in writing up this game, this campaign, and publishing it? And he said yes. And he did an amazing job, I think. And yeah, we put it in the print, and it's available now on Drive-Thru RPG, Rune Wild. It's just like a fun forest hex crawl sort of thing. And it's got all kinds of like weird fae and witches and sort of a dark fairy tale vibe, but not like grim dark, just like creepy enough, but it still plays like, you know, heroic D&D. So I think it's a really good time.
There's so many amazing ideas in that book. Even if you never ran one of the related adventures or used one of the, I don't know how many monsters are statted in here, dozens. Man, it's a gold mine of ideas. Excuse me, a gold mine of ideas. I love that product. You just said you don't put out a lot of products. How many do you put out in a year, do you think?
It varies from year to year. Like, I would like to be at like one a month or so. I don't think I quite do that. You know, I publish a lot of stuff in different editions. So if you count like the Pathfinder edition and the D&D edition as two different products, it gets probably close to once a month. And, you know, that being said, like a lot of those are pretty short. Like the Rune Wild that you held up there, you know, that is our biggest product, but we've done a few other like big, you know, 100, 200 page books. But I mean, we've done like 3 or 4 of that length over about 10 years of publishing. And then some mid-size, like 30 to 60 page books, and then some, you know, short, just like 8 to 10 page stuff, little one-shot adventures, or little just one location, descriptions of one location. So like, you know, I'm counting those for my once per month thing too. So
sure. Do you have a Kickstarter right now?
we do have a Kickstarter right now. It is called Lock and Key, and it is like I was saying, it's actually quite short. It is
and inexpensive.
about,
I mean, it doesn't cost anything to back this one.
yeah, it's $3 for the regular level, and $5 gets you, so $3 gets you the PDF in one edition of your choice. $5 gets you PDF in 5th edition, Pathfinder 2 and Savage Worlds. Plus, when we hit our $1,200 stretch goal, we're going to do a second book about rope. But yeah, so it's a short book, it's cheap. And it is about locks and keys and different things with that theme. So, you know, I talk in the start a little bit of history, like real world history about like the development of locks.
Sure.
And like one of the fun facts about history is that like the way that we pick locks today did not exist in the Middle Ages. When really? Yeah, because locks were way worse and it was way easier to pick. So like you know, in the movies today or in actual life, people have like the multiple tools and they push pressure on one and pin thing up there. You don't need all that. You just need a little thing that fits in and can bump it up. So it's way easier to pick locks in the Middle Ages. And so like, you know, therefore how we role play, or how I always role played before I did this, was more in line with what we do today.
Sure.
But it's fantasy too, so Yeah, so real world history, and then there's new monsters that have lock or key themes. There's traps that you can put on your locks. There's magical locks. There's magic key themed items. So a bunch of different stuff just with the lock and key theme. And then we're gonna do a rope one when we hit our $1,200 stretch goal, which I've not written yet.
Oh, well, you'll probably hit 1,200 then, given the kind of
Yeah,
curve thing that Kickstarter does, right? So
yeah.
do you mostly use Kickstarter to launch your products?
I have been using Kickstarter for a long time, and for a long time, I just used it for the bigger products. Yeah, and then the little ones, I would just, fund out of the revenue that I was getting. And like that worked because I can put out like a 10-page PDF for a couple $100. But I don't have the like $5,000 sitting around that I would need to put out something bigger. But then this one is a little PDF that like I could have put out a version, but I wanted to experiment and see what would happen. So I'm putting out a better version because of the Kickstarter. I'm gonna have more art basically with it, and then also paying for the conversions with the funds that we've raised on Kickstarter. Like I said, I'm in this to not lose money. That's my main goal. And there's always a little bit of risk with just funding it myself and releasing it, even though I usually use my proceeds from other sales. But yeah, like it's been a real big success. And I think that like I'm reaching some people that I probably wouldn't have reached if I'd done just the traditional like mainly drive-through RPG route. And because of that, like I'm thinking that I might do more of these small ones in the future.
I mean, the way you're talking, it's clearly you're not your source of income, right? So is it?
No.
It's like a hobby for you, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it like I get, a little bit of income from it, but I am blessed with a wonderful wife who has a wonderful job and pays the majority of our income. And then we have a 3-year-old at home I take care of during the day. That's what I'm saying.
Sure.
Yeah, but then I do this, in my spare time. I have a lot of fun, generate a little bit of revenue.
I think I threw you off there. I guess my real question was Kickstarter break even, you make your real money on drive through and follow up?
Oh, yes. So that is another thing that I have been experimenting with. Break even was how I did it for a long time. I mean, that works fine. But I've been looking, like, especially the stuff that I've written myself. Like, I've been thinking I should pay myself a little bit of something for this.
Yeah.
So I've started including some of that in the budget for like Terrain Toolbox was the book before the Kickstarter I did before this one.
Great book. Love that book.
That one I have right here. Terrain Toolbox, I put in a budget to pay myself as though I were a freelancer for myself. And I did that with this current one too.
It's one of the things you said about Kickstarter is you think you're reaching different people than you normally would have for a small one. Do you have a social marketing campaign, or how do you so I have 10 products that I sell right now, less than a year. I have not even come close to building an audience. Although I think that there is one person that buys my product at the very first moment it goes on sale. It's probably my wife or somebody that's a friend of mine that doesn't even play. But how do you build an audience? Because like to me, that's the key.
I mean, I do have an email list.
How did you build your email list?
Couple ways. The way that has been the most successful is that when I do a Kickstarter, I've been using BackerKit recently, And I just say, you know, would you like to be on our email list as one of the survey questions? And if they say yes, I put them on the email list. And if they say no, I don't. And that has gotten most people. And then I do conventions, or I did, well, I did a virtual convention this year, my first year, because of COVID. And that was fun and exciting and different. And before that, I did in-person conventions, and I always bring a sign-up sheet. You know, if you want to be on our email list, you can sign up for that. And that's gotten a good number of people. And I've tried other things, just putting it on my website or posting about it other places, and gotten less traction on the email list from that. You know, one of the great features about drive-through RPG is that you can email existing customers who accept email from you. Customers can opt out of it, but if they're open to it, you can email your existing customers. So I do that whenever I release a new book, and we can do it for a Kickstarter too. And that has been another good source on our Kickstarter. Like on this current Kickstarter, you know, you get all kinds of Kickstarter facts, and referral sources is one. And that drive-through RPG has been the largest non-Kickstarter source of things.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's something I haven't done. So I started before the DM's Guild was available. I'm not sure that they have that option on DM's Guild.
I don't think they do. I mean, all my products are on DM's Guild so far. My next couple will probably not be on DM's Guild. That's hence my Kickstarter questions.
Yeah.
And I probably have 1,000 questions about the OGL, but I don't think we'll get into all the technical legal stuff tonight.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think DM's Guild has as many resources as Drive-Through. I've read that from other creators. And if they do, I don't know where they are.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose I should click on more of the links and see what they all do.
That never hurts. Yeah, I looked at DM's Guild when it came out. Like, there were a number of things that made me stick with OGL because of that.
Sure.
Like, the biggest one is you can't do a Kickstarter for a DM's Guild product.
Right, you can't sell your product anywhere else other than DM's Guild. So I get that. I mean, it's an easy place to start for me, because I have my #1 seller is Creatures of Eberron. I went through every Eberron book I own, and I just converted, I don't know how many, 50 or whatever it was. And that's by far my bigger seller, 100 and some copies, full price, and then a whole bunch of copies that were part of like a GM's for a monster bundle last fall. Speaking of which, and if I get this up in time, I don't know if I will, for the next several days, almost everything on Drive-Through or DM's Guild is on sale because it's GM's Day today, I think. And you're my GM, so you should tell me what you want me to buy you.
Oh my gosh.
I'm currently playing a campaign that Matthew is the dungeon master for, where we're basically going around and killing every dragon on this one continent, which doesn't always work. Very early on, we had 2 deaths very quickly, and I'm still not convinced I should trust either halfling. But who knows?
Who knows? That won't come up again in the future, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny how since that one red dragon, you guys have not gone after any red dragons.
It is kind of weird. I wonder why.
Yeah.
I wonder why. We'll just skip to the, like, what advice would you give to, I don't know, somebody starting, and maybe somebody like me who's got a little bit of experience but hasn't really done a Kickstarter or done anything really big yet?
Yeah, I would say, like, there are lots of resources out there that you can take a peek at on the internet. I mean, you can Google some. It is not RPG specific, but the Stonemeyer blog is a board game company and has done a ton of Kickstarters and has some great advice that is also applicable to RPGs.
Yeah, that site is a gold mine for how to use Kickstarter. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll put a
And then
link in
there's,
the thing below for that website for sure.
yeah, there's a Facebook group called, I think it's Kickstarter, like best practices and lessons learned, that has a bunch of great information on it. So like, you know, back some Kickstarters. So I see a lot of times people just put out a Kickstarter and it's clear that they don't really know like what they're doing. So like take a look at what some other people are doing. You can back my Kickstarter if you want, but you could also just search and back one that is actually exciting to you. If you're not excited by anything on Kickstarter, maybe Kickstarter is not the place for you. Yeah. Yeah, I love like indie games, and I have a group that I play indie games with, but like the pace that we play definitely does not match. Yeah, that's a good one. I highly recommend it. The pace that we play indie games does not match the pace that I buy indie games.
How did you come up with this whole lock and key thing? What inspires you? Is it movies? Is it books? Is it just like you're playing a game and all of a sudden you're like, man, I should do a product because nobody else has done one? Like I have an idea that I can't find a RPG book about this topic, and it's like a tenth of old school dungeons are about this kind of thing, and I can't find anything about it. So it's one of the ones I've drafted and just have never really finished. So it's not ready, but it's similar to what you're doing right now. Where do you get your inspirations?
It's just stuff that seems cool to me. I know that's like a very nebulous answer, but like, you know, Lock and Key came about just because I was thinking about like, you know, there's all this mundane stuff that, you know, people travel around with, and like the non-magical things, and like wanted to sort of explore that, and started thinking about locks and keys, and you know, what were they really like back in the day, and then some magic stuff around them, and like rope. Everybody uses rope in their adventures. Like what can I do with that? You know, terrain toolbox was just like, you know, I developed it in 4th edition, which was extra miniatures heavy. And just thinking about making cool encounters that went well in 4th edition, and like you could put in some monsters, but yeah, we could do a lot of stuff with terrain too. Like, you know, we've got pits, but what else can we do? We can do, you
I
know,
think I own
crazy.
all of your D&D products. I don't know if I own all of your products. And I think Terrain Toolbox, every dungeon master should own that book. You know, not everyone's going to want to do something in the Rune Wild, or not everyone's going to want to do one of your adventures, but Terrain Toolbox, I mean, everybody can use that. There's so many great ideas in there. And I think you have the old 4th edition version, you have the 5th edition version. I assume you have Pathfinder 1 and Pathfinder 2.
That is correct.
I love that book.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Yeah, that is like, I don't know if I can pick a favorite, but that one definitely does have a special spot in my heart. It was my very first Kickstarter. That Kickstarter, you know, took the business up a step. And then it also, you know, was our, you know, not current, but most recent before that, to do the update to 5th edition and Pathfinder 2, and did really well with that, and has been selling well. And it's, yeah, it definitely is one that I'm very fond of also.
Let's go back to working with editors, because I mean, I'm editing, laying out, writing. I'm doing everything right now because I'm out of work and this is my hobby. It's definitely a hobby. I mean, I don't make any money on it yet. Is it expensive to hire an editor? Because like I feel like when I actually do my first Kickstarter, I should have an editor, maybe someone do layout, if that's the same person, a different person, I don't know. Do you do layout, or do you pay someone to do layout? And is it really expensive? Like I'm worried about, okay, so I make 800 or 1,000 or whatever make, but it's all chewed up by backer kit and paying editors and layout people and artists. And then, you know, I do it for the fun more than anything else, but then why did I kind of do it? You know what I mean?
I mean, at first I actually just, you know, roped my friends into editing stuff. And then I think it was probably Turing Toolbox where I hired the first editor, or the main editor I still use, Craig Hargraves, edits most of my books. You know, it costs money, but I mean, it's not gonna like blow the bank. And it's something that you bring up a good point with Kickstarter is make sure you check your expenses beforehand, because like you said, it is really easy, you know, to underestimate things. Find
Like
some.
your Kickstarters are kind of smaller, right? They're not like Matt Colville size, or the
No.
One Ring I think is going to pass $2 million this, which is insane.
And I plot out, you know, how much all the freelancers are going to make, factor in Kickstarter's kick, the backer kit percent, and then shipping and printing is always the trickiest one, because, you know, that depends on how much people back where.
Sure.
So like, you know, what rewards people select. So like, if it's a, you know, $3,000 goal, you know, if all 3,000 of that dollars is raised by people getting the PDF, well, then I have 0 printing and shipping. But that's not the case unless it's only a PDF. So I use my previous Kickstarters to try to estimate how much printing and shipping is going to be. But then it's good to try to pad that a little bit, because, you know, you never know how
Sure.
it's going to turn out. One thing that happened with the Rune Wild is that we had stretch goals to make the book longer, which of course made the book more expensive. So everyone who backed the Kickstarter got a really good deal on it. I think I'm charging like $20 more for it post Kickstarter.
What would you want to say to other creators?
Have fun with it. That's probably like the biggest thing. If you like, there'll be parts that you don't like, but overall, you know, this hobby that we're in, I think is a great hobby. It's not the most lucrative. I'm sure I could make more money writing clickbait articles out there or something like that. But I like this, and then like keep trying, keep working hard.
Do you have another creator that you really like that you would recommend people look at?
I mean, I like Evil Hat a lot. They do Fate, and then several other games like that. Like their stance on social justice issues too. I'll plug.
I'll go back to the business side for a second.
Mm-hmm.
How much, like last month or this year, 2 months so far this year, how many different products do you think sold for you on drive-through?
Quite like a bunch. There's a phrase called like a long tail.
Yeah.
That I've, which is how things often work for me, or how it works for me at least, especially on something like drive-through where it's PDF, where I have, you know, sales, like whatever I released most recently is of course the biggest seller, but then like I'll have, you know, 1 copy of a book that I released 5 years ago and 2 copies of this other book that I released, you know, 8 months ago. And
what sells the most for you? Adventures, kind of toolboxy things, setting books. What do you think sells the most for you?
Probably more towards setting books, especially like my all-time #1 seller is definitely Broken Earth. And especially Broken Earth for Savage Worlds. It's classic post-apocalyptic. There's been a nuclear war.
So tell us more about your current one. Give me one lock or one key or one thing that you want to spill the beans on while we're on this call.
I mean, the one that is on the website is the Key Skeleton, which is a play on Skeleton Key, of course, which is a skeleton made out of keys, skeleton-shaped monster made out of keys, that is designed to hunt stuff down. And then I'll give you something else that's not on the website for an exclusive.
Wow.
One of them that I enjoy is called the Key of Annihilation, which is a magic item, which is slightly inspired by like the Legend of Zelda games, where you found any old key, it worked in any door, and then the door and the key just disappeared.
Sure.
So that's the basic mechanics of a Key of Annihilation, is that it's a key, it works on any lock, and when you use it though, it destroys the key and the door in the process of it. So
wow. That's a cool idea.
Yeah.
So what that could really, you could really do some cool stuff with that, right? You could go on a quest to find a key of I can't say that word, so that you could unlock the most unlockable door, right?
Yeah.
Or you could
unlock
some door that really should be relocked, but now you can't close it anymore. I can think of a million uses for this.
It's a sort of magic item that I love just like handing out and being like, what are you going to do with it? Let's find out. Like immovable rods is another of my favorite magic items. I'm like, here's an immovable rod. Go nuts.
I really want to figure out how to use that more in our Friday game. What do you like about playing Dungeons and Dragons? I mean, I have a million things that I like, and I've been playing even longer than you. But what is it about this hobby that you like so much?
Yeah, I think the creativity of it, and like especially the cooperative creativity, because like I also am getting back into fiction writing after taking a long break, and I enjoy that a lot. But it's a different dynamic because like I have ideas of stories, and I sort of set things in motion, but then when I'm GMing, people take them different directions, and I'm like, cool, I did not think you were going to do that. But you did, and it was super awesome.
Does that mean we're going to get a Sneak Attack Press novel someday? Or at least a Matthew Tabor Hanson novel someday?
More likely a Matthew Tabor Hanson novel. I am working on a couple short stories right now that I'm going to try to get published first, and then hopefully work on a novel after I've got like some confidence there, or maybe a picture book, because I have a 3-year-old, and just like interacting with him on a daily basis makes me think of like 20 picture book ideas.
Yeah. I actually had a really good picture book idea that I should have done when my kids were small. And as you know, I wrote a novel, which you were kind enough to read. And man, you could tell it was my first one. Needs a lot of work. But I got 3 more in my head. I think I admitted this to someone. Was it you or somebody else? I think I admitted it maybe to my neighbor the other day, that I write these PDFs so that I can avoid writing another novel that I don't think is very good. Which is kind of sad, but I am with you. I like the cooperative nature of the game. I'm super competitive. Although as I had kids and they got older, I learned a little bit about not being quite so competitive. Plus my wife wins 99 times out of 100 in cribbage anyway, so why am I competitive? But I really like the cooperative aspect of the game. And to your point, when I used to, like I DM'd for you and some of our other friends for a long time, you guys did stuff that I never would have thought of in a million years. And it was fun watching everybody come up with crazy ideas, or even when they didn't, kind of playing along with the story that I kind of had in my head. I really like that part a lot. Thanks for being the first person to do this. I really want to find other creators, some with experience that can give advice to other creators, and some new people who I can just have a conversation with about what they're trying to do and the struggles that they're having. And then maybe someday, you know, follow up on those struggles with somebody else in other interviews. So I really appreciate your time, Matthew. Thank you.